Around the time of Riftbound's launch here in Australia, we had the misfortune of all of the product being delayed about a week and a half. As a consolation prize, my local game store decided to host a sealed event around the time of launch as kind of like a secondary launch event, a way players could get access to more cards in their collection and learn the game, and I think it was a perfect idea and I had so much fun playing in it. I've got 2 videos coming up from this event. I've already made a general overview guide of how you should approach the sealed format, so if you haven't checked that out, I'll leave it linked in the description and at the end of this video. And here's a quick look at the sealed deck I ended up with. There's a lot of really good key cards in here that are important for this format, like Mega Mech and Riptide Rex. And there's also a good amount of acceleration, which is another important keyword for closing out games in a lot of scenarios. One card that really impressed me throughout these games was Convergent Mutation, simply because it creates scenarios that can be a complete blowout for the opponent, and it's really difficult for them to account for like up to plus like 7 just out of 2 energy. My legend for this event was Darius, and my chosen champion was Draven Showboat. This video will be focused on my second round. My opponent here is on Victor, a really solid legend for this format, because it represents so much value over the course of the game, and he's decided to bring Targon's Peak to the table. Generally, I'm happy when my opponent's flipping battlefields with text on them. As you'll see from my sealed guide, if you haven't checked it out, I much prefer bringing a blank battlefield to the game, because I always feel like there's too much risk on a battlefield with text, unless you're going first, because you can kind of mitigate some of the risk depending on the battlefield. So I was happy to see the Targon's Peak. My opponent wins the dice roll, and they start off the game with a Forge the Future, creating a 1 might recruit token. On my turn, I'm feeling pretty good because I get to start off the game really strong with Darius Legend ability developing 2 2-drops, both a Daring Pourer and a Pouty Pourer. With no remorse at all, my opponent jams the perfect response on their turn, a Falling Star, to clear both of my 2-drops. Now they do have to pay some taxes because the Pouty Pourer does have the deflect keyword, so in total my opponent's recycling 4 runes here, but they do get to clear out 2 2-drops, which is a big tempo swing for them. They do get to also develop a Daring Pourer and push their recruit up to Targon's Peak for the first point. Probably pretty happy despite having to pay the deflect tax. I think it was worth it for them. On my turn, I simply develop a Blazing Scorcher. It doesn't look very clean, especially for my deck, which wants to be playing quite fast, but 5 might unit while the opponent is only representing a 2 might and a 1 might doesn't feel like the worst thing in the world. The opponent pulls back their recruit and develops a Dangerous Duo. They also decide to resolve the Forge the Future effect to force me to recycle my trash back into my deck. He verbalized to me at this point that he was playing around Spectral Matron, which I wasn't running, but I thought it was really cool to see my opponent even considering such an interaction in this sealed environment. I think it was really good to do so, considering the card is only uncommon. There's a pretty good chance that my deck had access to it or it was in my past. I move my Blazing Scorcher up to Targon's Peak and develop Mega Mech and ready 2 runes for the Targon's Peak effect. Overall, I feel like I've recovered from the early tempo swing that was Falling Star, and I'm starting to feel like there's a real game to be played from here, because honestly, when Falling Star first happened, I just assumed I was going to be out of this game. Like, I was thinking about game 2 and 3, but hitting exactly Blazing Scorcher into the Mega Mech has been a pretty good recovery from that position. Our opponent develops a Legion Rearguard as their first card for play, so that they can activate the Legion ability on Dangerous Duo, buffing his Daring Pourer. Then he pushes both his Daring Pourer and a recruit into Targon's Peak, his 6 might against my 5. I use Convergent Mutation, using the energy that I got back from Targon's Peak to pump Blazing Scorcher up to 8 thanks to my Mega Mech. The opponent passes their turn, and I take some time to develop. I bring back my Blazing Scorcher, play Echo, and Faithful Manufacturer, setting up a very large board for the next turn. I don't feel compelled to go get my 3rd point. I talk about this a lot, but generally speaking, you want to be on even points rather than odd points. So there's not really much point in me risking my Mega Mech when I'm pretty confident I'll be able to score twice next turn and every turn going forward. Opponent creates a token and immediately sacrifices it with Cruel Patron and passes to me. It's a very similar turn to my turn where he's just developing stuff in base, but now he's giving me the chance to go to 4 points with minimal risk while he's still at 2, so I'm pretty happy in this position. Kind of a forced play from opponent's perspective though, because if they push up any of their units, my units are just going to run over them for very little risk on my end, just simply because I have the bigger unit. I move up both my Echo and my Blazing Scorcher to the respective battlefields and pass, leaving up my full energy pool for the opponent's turn, while I go to 4 points and have 5 might at each respective battlefield. The opponent goes for Riptide Rex targeting the Echo, and I react with back-to-back, leaving Echo at 7, and also my Blazing Scorcher is also at 7. So Echo is at 6 damage marked with 7 might. For some reason I place a 4 dice token on top of the Echo as if to mark its 4 damage, but it has 6 damage on it and both players are aware of that. It was just a mental blank there for me. The opponent runs in their low risk Legion Rearguard into my Echo. I let him take this kill on Echo and restand all of my runes. I already had 6 runes up, and spoilers for where this turn is going, I already had enough runes to cast Grand Stratagem, but I intentionally held it for this combat, thinking that it would be better for me to get the value out out of the +5 in the next combat because I'm probably going to be able to kill more units than I would than just this Legion rearguard. My opponent pushes 2 of his 3 might units into my 7 might Blazing Scorcher because it has +2 from back to back. Of course, I let him take back that action because he just forgot about the back to back. It's an easy thing to forget about, so and the stakes are low, so it's like whatever. You can take the action back, of course. It's not a big deal. So then he pushes in his 9 might in total with the Cruel Patron plus the Dangerous Duo. In Showdown, I now cast the Grand Stratagem that I was holding, going to my 12 versus his 9, and my 12 winning the Showdown. Then he passes to me, I go to 5 for holding. Quickly, I develop a Jeweled Colossus in base, resolving the Vision effect, and then I move back my Blazing Scorcher and move up a 1 might recruit token, going to the ever so important 6 point, threatening a double conquer for the next turn. Opponent quickly double conquers himself, uses Salvage to draw a card, and then he tried to hide Consult the Past and immediately flip it. This is against the game rules. You can't hide a card and then reveal it the same turn that you hit it. Hidden cards cannot be revealed the turn that they're hidden, so I simply let him take it back. He decides to develop the hidden card anyway, and creates a 1 might recruit token at Targon. I move up my Mega Mech into Targon's, and he reacts with the Consult the Past to draw 2 cards. He draws and plays back to back, targeting his 2 units at the Targon's peak. His total is now 11 to my 8, and I use a discounted Sky Splitter to kill his recruit token, making the Showdown now 8 to 8, and we trade. I walk up the Faithful Manufacturer to score the hard fought point, and push my 2 last units into the Dangerous Duo for game. I was surprised we were able to pull that one back after such a devastating Falling Star, but got pretty lucky into the Blazing Scorcher Mega Mech curve. It worked out pretty perfectly for me. In game 2, our opponent brings Trifarian Warcamp, and I bring a Blank Battlefield. He lets us go first, likely hoping that he can hit a 2-drop on turn 1, and then use his recruit token from his Victor Legend ability. Also, if he goes second, he denies me the Darius Legend ability interaction to play 2-2-drops on turn 1. So actually, I think going second is a pretty clean strategy from this position. Generally speaking, going first is significantly better in Riftbound, but going second here definitely has its merits. I start with Daring Poro, and my opponent only develops a recruit, likely missing the 2-drop that they were hoping to get. My turn 2 is a pretty explosive one. I play the Daring Poro and use the Darius Legend ability to play Vanguard Captain, creating 2 tokens. Lastly, I take the first point of the game by moving up my Poro to the Warcamp and pass. There's a bit of confusion on this turn. My opponent goes to play a Blazing Scorcher and then realizes they have another option that they would prefer, so I let them take it back. It's not a big deal. Instead, they develop the Noxus Hopeful and use the Victor Legend ability to create a recruit. On my turn, I take the hold point and bring back my Poro, then I move up my recruit token to take the 3rd point. Typically, as I spoke about last game, odd numbers are less important than even numbers, but in this case, I was able to collect the 3rd point by only risking a single 1 might recruit token. It's not a big deal. It's an easy point with really low risk. I might as well go take it. I also take the time to develop my Draven Chosen Champion in base, who is already representing 6 might, and that extra point that, even though I know my recruit token's gonna die, that extra point does give +1 to Draven. Not that it will matter, I think, in most game states. If I was going from 6 to 7 might on Draven, that's an important break point, but 5 to 6 probably isn't making a huge difference here. He walks in with Noxus Hopeful over my recruit and collects a point at the Warcamp, taking him to 2 points, and develops a Machine Evangel on top of that at the Warcamp, a strong defensive unit that is really annoying for me to deal with. I don't want to spend resources on it because he's just going to end up getting recruit tokens anyway. Lastly, he hides a card at the Blank Battlefield and moves his token there for backup and creates an additional token at the Warcamp. I Riptide Rex the opponent's Machine Evangel to clear it. Not the best target for Riptide Rex, but it's an efficient way of dealing with the card, I guess, making the camp much easier to take on my turn, but obviously I have to worry about the recruits next turn. My opponent reacts to this with Consult the Past to draw 2 cards. We talked about this after the game, but him flipping the Consult the Past makes this turn much easier for me. The odds are that it is going to be Consult the Past just because I saw him play it last game, but there's a big difference between, from my perspective, thinking that, oh, the odds are here that it is Consult the Past, compared to, oh, it is Consult the Past. There's a big difference between knowing for a fact what the hidden card is and having a really good educated guess, because now I get to approach combat in a completely different way, a much easier way. I don't have to do any hedging. I can just walk in with open information, basically. Especially because the opponent only has 1 energy up, I can approach combat really easily this turn. I push my Daring Poro into his 2 recruits. It's a 4-for-4 trade because of the Trifarian Warcamp. The opponent uses that 1 energy to play Stupefy, so now my Poro can only kill off 1 of the recruits, which is fine. Now that my opponent's tapped out completely, and of course I've seen the Consult the Past, I can confidently walk up with my Vanguard Captain to conquer Warcamp and send my other Poro into my opponent's 5 might and use Cleave to go over the top of the 5 might, my 6 into his 5. We've cleared off most of the opponent's board and we go to 5 points. Important note here, going to 5 points was important. Again, usually the odd points don't matter as much, but getting this 5th point in this case is going to take Draven up to 8 might, which enables a Sky Splitter for 0 energy. And of course, Sky Splitter is in my deck. The opponent accelerates Blazing Scorcher and then pushes it into the Vanguard Captain. I let it go through, then he sends 3 recruit tokens into my Pora, and I also let that go through. On the Crackback, I send Rex into one of the battlefields and Draven into the other, pushing to 7 points with 6 might and 11 might totals at each respective battlefield, passing with 6 runes up for interaction. I was very confident going into this turn, but my opponent hit me with Thousand-Tailed Watcher into Falling Star. It's sealed! Falling Star kills off my Riptide Rex and he pushes the Watcher into my Draven. I actually miscalculated here. Draven is representing 11 and then -3 from Watcher, so in total 8 into my opponent's 8. So I was already trading on the Trifarian War Camp. But anyway, despite that, I did use Falling Comet to make this a trade. But yeah, I just had a miscalculation in the moment. I thought he was 1 over me, but we were actually already trading and it was a total waste of my Falling Comet. I move up my Recruit to draw a card for Conquering because I'm unable to score the 8th point. Then I develop a Faithful Manufacturer and a Petty Officer in my base for what will hopefully be game the next turn. The opponent takes a moment double checking their options and decides to concede because they don't have an answer. Overall, a really fun set. I've actually played this person at locals before and they're always a blast to play with. They've always got a good attitude, so I really enjoyed this set and this event in total. I'll be back with another video from this event tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, keep being awesome, and I'll catch you in the next one.